I'm a really big fan of the modern Digimon story games, that being Cyber Sleuth and Hacker's Memory, and to me, the gameplay is really enjoyable, the stories are pretty good, and the huge roster of different Digimon are some key features to me. But one of its weaker points definitely has to be how easy the games are in general and how the hard mode is handled. And here I come having some ideas on how they can improve on the hard modes. But if you didn't know how it was handled originally, everything just has a higher HP stat and everything deals more damage, and to me that kinda just sucks. One of these ideas was changing up the team setups for boss fights. So say for example the Growlmon fight in chapter 2, there could be an Agumon and Vmon helping it. This also ends up making the team's attack a lot stronger because their support skills end up raising their attack by quite a bit, where Growlmon can at least raise it up by 5%. And I know he has other abilities with his support because I think it increased every stat by 5%, but in this case, it can still help our attack. Agumon can raise up the fire attacks by 15%, so when Growlmon uses his signature move, that can do a lot more damage, and Beamon raises up the whole team's attack by 15%, so obviously you would have to rethink your strategy a little bit if you want to not have all your Digimon get wiped out easily, so you could end up bringing a lot more defensive Digimon and stuff like that. Another fight that they could change is the Force Jimiken fight, where his original team is 2 Meramons and a Devimon. My change would give him a Myotismon, a Wizardmon, and a Black Godamon. This ends up being a lot different in comparison because, again, these Digimon can help up with the support skills, and I do also think by making certain Digimon on their team a higher level can make it a lot more naturally difficult instead of just making them deal more damage, which again is pretty lazy to me. Another thing I've noticed that these games have the option to but don't really take it with the boss fights is giving these Digimon a lot of different moves. Mostly say this just because for me at least I've noticed that the elements of the Digimon don't really matter as much. It's just there so you can get maybe a little bit extra damage if you have to correct attacks. But I feel that if they change it up in the boss fights quite a bit, you can actually use the different element attacks a lot more, or at least have you defend against them a lot more, because again, they don't really matter in the grand scheme of things. All that really matters is if you're a data virus and stuff like that. And for the Jimikin example I gave, maybe the team could have a lot of dog type attacks and maybe just have say AoE fire attacks, normal magic fire attacks and stuff like that to really sell the idea of that elements also do matter a lot more. And something else in these games that I don't really think plays a big role definitely has to be the support skills. One thing that could change with this is that on the hard mode they could end up buffing a lot of the support skills because the buffs aren't really that huge from what I've noticed. They usually range from 5% to at most 30%, and the ones that raise it up by 50% are really limited to a few Digimon, very few Digimon, and you have to have some conditions for those buffs to actually take place. So really most of them are again at 30%. And note, some of the stronger ones shouldn't really get that much of a buff, so something like Furious Howl should maybe only increase to 35%. So of course something like Agumon's support skill that increased fire damage by 15% should maybe have a bigger buff, maybe to 30% or something like that. Something else I think that should be changed was you having the option to pick what support skill you want for that Digimon out of say a list of 3 to 5. So every time you digivolve into a new Digimon, you get an option on what support skill you do want. For example, Ironclad Fortification is only available to Craniumon. So if this was added to more defensive Digimon, for example Grand Locomon, Machine Dramon, and Infomon, this could add a lot more variety and actually make you think of what support skill each Digimon has. And then of course again with Iron Fortification, that raises up defense, so you might want to have Digimon that help lower the defense, or maybe have Digimon that have piercing attacks and stuff like that. Another part of the game that you have total access to but the bosses don't has to be the ABI stat, because if you don't know how it acts, it basically functions as the EV system from Pokemon. So I do suggest that in the harder modes they actually should apply this, because you can gain 200 extra stats in Hacker's Memory and the Complete Edition and 100 extra stats in the original Cyber Sleuth, but I'm going to base this off the Complete Edition, so that will be 200 extra stats. And obviously if this was used in the hard mode, it can give you an extra challenge and make you think, well, maybe I should actually try to buff my Digimon in other ways other than just leveling them up. And more or less, I think that's all the things that they could do to make the hard mode actually hard and not just make everything hit harder and everything have more HP. I think that this topic is a lot more straightforward than my video talking about difficulty in Pokemon, just because the modern Digimon story games I feel have way less to deal with in comparison to the Pokemon games. But regardless, whatever mechanics this game does have, I feel it's pretty interesting and can actually make the fights more challenging if they put the time and effort into thinking what to do with it. And of course, I do feel that this should be limited to the hard mode, since it is the hard mode, and I found the original hard modes to be pretty underwhelming. They can have similar strategies in the normal mode, but definitely amped it up for the harder mode. But in the end, this is whatever I can think of alone, and I want to know what you guys think. Did you guys like the ideas I proposed? And maybe what some ideas you guys had to make the game harder? Let me know in the comments below, and thank you all for watching.